Good morning. Welcome to this edition of the Richard Urban Show. We're very happy to have the special edition for the West Virginia elections 2020. Today, we have Kris Raynes coming on. Thank you very much for being on. And she's running for the Supreme Court of Appeals Division 2. So, Kris, please introduce yourself and we'll take it from there.
Thank you so much, Richard. I appreciate all the hard work that you've done to get me on today. My name is Kris Raynes. I live in Putnam County, West Virginia, and that's where I was born and raised. I went to Marshall University and the University of Akron School of Law. I started my career in Akron, Ohio at the Summit County Prosecutor's Office, where I stayed for 6.5 years, gained a ton of experience. I even tried my first death penalty murder trial before I was 30 years old. So that really taught me to put together complex cases in prosecution. In 2006, I moved back to West Virginia and took a position at the United States Attorney's Office in Charleston as a special assistant United States attorney doing high-intensity drug trafficking cases. And that was a federal grant that was eventually eliminated. So in 2008, I went to Putnam County, and that's where I've been for the last 12 years. I try exclusively felonies. I do most of the violent felonies, a lot of the murders, but my main focus is on child predators, child sex abuse, and child abuse cases. Those cases are the most dear to my heart because those victims are the most vulnerable. They can't always speak out for themselves, and so getting justice for them is the most gratifying for me.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. So could you tell us the three main reasons or the main reasons why you decided to run for the Supreme Court of Appeals?
So seeing what happened in 2018 with the court was a very surreal experience. Like I told you, I went to law school outside of the state, and of course, the court scandal went nationwide news. So I would have people calling me or texting me from law school saying, "What's going on with your court?" And I'm like, "I don't know. That we're trying to eliminate one branch of government, I guess." And so anyway, it was I followed that because I am a real believer in separation of powers. And, you know, I'm a constitutional constructionist, which means I believe that each branch of government should check and balance the other. And so I was seeing constitutional law at work in that during that era. And so when the opportunity came up for an empty seat on the court, this was Margaret Workman was retiring. I thought, well, that might be a good option for me. I've spent 20 years as a career prosecutor. I've always thought that maybe I would move on to the judiciary at some time. And I thought that right now was my time. And an interesting thing about Margaret Workman is, just as an aside, my mother worked for the Supreme Court as an administrative assistant for more than 20 years. And she started in right around the time that Justice Workman was inaugurated, and I believe that was 1989. I was a freshman in high school, and she took me to Charleston, and it was a cold January day to see the first woman inaugurated and put on the Supreme Court. So that is whose seat that I'm running for right now. And I just thought, wouldn't that be neat if I filled her shoes, since I was there from the beginning?
Okay. So, you know, I was looking more at the information or reading up a little bit about the 2018 impeachment proceedings, and there were a number of twists and turns with that. How do you view that? Do you think it seemed like the reconstituted Supreme Court of Appeals, or the whatever temporary one, seemed to put a stop to the impeachment? Do you think there was overreach on the part of the West Virginia legislature, or do you think it was balanced? Or anyway, give us your view on that if you don't mind.
So in my research of that case, I saw that the court was following the law that it had before them. Back in the 70s, I believe that there was an administrative policy that basically gave the court its own oversight over budget matters and things of that nature. And so most of the articles of impeachment had to do with purchasing and things that dealt with the court's budget. So the court, I felt that its hands were tied because it was following the law, but I believe that the law was wrong because the law was putting too much power into the judiciary branch, being able to oversee its own budget and purchasing and things. That is something that no other state agency has the chance to do. So I think that the court decided correctly as to the law that was available to them at that time. However, I think that democracy went into action after that, and the voters solved that problem by passing the constitutional amendment to have the legislature oversee the budget of the court. So that definitely put the power back into the separation of powers, the checks and balances. That definitely reinstituted that. And so I think we have to applaud the voters for actually putting that back into their hands and the intent of the framers whenever they set up this 3-branch government.
Okay. Yeah. I remember the amendment being on the ballot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So one question, I noticed that one of the a little more technical question, but one of the issues. Oh, sorry about that. One of the issues was that there was something about split pay. Like there was a limit on the justices who were not who were brought on. I forget their name, but they
Senior
weren't.
status.
Yeah, they were retired, but they brought on in some other status. They weren't supposed to get more than 25% of pay, and apparently they
Right.
went around that by giving them a W-2, but also giving them a 1099. It seems like that was a violation of the law. Or what do you think?
Well, I didn't really look into that part of independently, other than just the case law at the time there. But I definitely think that under the leadership of Chief Justice Walker at the time, and now Chief Justice Armstead, they've really put into place measures that you would think that the court would already have. I think that Chief Justice Walker put in a policy and personnel procedure manual, which is, what most businesses, small businesses even have that. And Chief Justice Armstead also put together a purchasing policy. And I think that would probably incorporate the payment of the senior status judges too. So they can definitely bring that back into a good system to where the courts is accountable to the citizens as well as accountable to the legislative auditors. I know that the court in the past couple years has cut its budget significantly and actually given money back to the state, which is kind of unheard of a state agency, but they're definitely working to repair that integrity that they may have lost a few years ago.
Yeah, that's good. So you mentioned you were prosecuting child sexual abuse cases. Are there a lot of cases like that? Talk a little about that in West Virginia, and what can be done about that, like in the short and long run.
Well, there are. And, I had a discussion with my mother one time where she said, it seems like there are more of those types of cases these days than when she was growing up. And I said, Mom, I don't think there are. I just think that more people are telling now. And obviously with the internet, that also increases the level of predators' reach to children. So that may have increased it a little bit, but just that's such a family secret that people have kept in their families for so long. And again, victims are so reluctant to come forward because, number one, they are scared that they won't be believed. They're scared that they'll be, just run through the mill as far as being called a liar and everything that they've ever done being out in the open for everyone to see. But also, sometimes they don't have family support. A lot of my cases, the family sides with the abuser, and it sounds insane, but it's very hard. So when a victim comes forward to report some kind of abuse, their whole life is upended. They can be taken out of the home. They can be placed, hopefully with family, but maybe in foster care with people they don't know. And so it's an incredible thing for them to come forward and to tell their story. And so a lot of times you will see they're brave enough to tell somebody, but they'll immediately recant because things are just going so haywire in their lives. Those cases are hard to prove, but not if you dig. A lot of times, you'll not have any physical signs of physical abuse because the abuse goes on for such a long time that the children have had time to heal, or they're just not going to show signs anymore. So you have to dig deep into their background and see how it's affected them, and who they've told, and how consistent they've been with their disclosures. So these cases are intensive. It's not like a case where somebody goes in and uses a stolen credit card and it's on video and I can take that to trial and play the video to the jury and say, there, I rest my case. I mean, there are lots of witnesses, medical, there are lots of counselors, trained forensic examiners, things of that nature. But those cases, I'm willing to go the distance because I think it's so important for these kids to get justice.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. On a more long-term thing, I often felt like we have a nonprofit, Urban Life Training, deals with helping youth to stay absent from sex before marriage, doing educational programs, and encourage that. I've often thought that
Mhm.
in the long run, like generationally, that will help a lot, to avoid these kind of things. If um, yeah, we can have a stronger family structure.
Sure, very much so.
Yeah. Um, What about, I wanted to ask you, like, so this is something I've been working on with other people, is the issue of in West Virginia. I'm wondering, we have this system where, no vaccinations, no school. And I'm wondering, do you think that violates people's First or Fourth Amendment rights? Like, I mean, it seems most states have some kind of exemptions and like that. What do you think?
Well, unfortunately, I have to abide by the judicial ethics rules, and a lot of well, not unfortunately, fortunately, but as a candidate for a judicial spot, we are also under the judicial ethics rules, which indicates that we cannot give opinions on any type of case that could come before the court. So even though I do think that, that would be an interesting topic for me to talk about. I'm sorry, but I don't want to dodge the question. I just want to
Okay.
stay within the judicial ethics. So I apologize
Yeah.
for not
Okay.
giving an opinion.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can understand that. Candidates may
Okay,
not speak about
thank
that. Hmm. But yeah, I'm wondering, yeah, that's interesting question. And I don't know if this question follows exactly, but, feel free to tell me if with the same kind of problem. But I'm wondering, with the current issues with all the lockdowns and stay at home, it seems to really violate people's constitutional rights. I mean, wow. I know there's presumably some legislative health emergency authorities, but I don't know. I mean, it seems like, do you think these kind of cases, not just here, but throughout the nation, it seems like they may come up to the courts. I mean, is that something you would
you.
expect?
Absolutely. I think that, because the Supreme Court has also put in an emergency order for about the last 4 to 6 weeks. I can't remember exactly when that went in, but for safety purposes, the courthouses have been open, but we've only been taking the most emergent cases, and we've only been doing those by video conferencing, just trying to preserve everyone's safety. So I think that we are going to see a giant backlog of cases coming back whenever the courts open back up. And so we're going to have to do our best to budget our time, budget our resources on that, because each person's case is important to him or her, and justice delayed is justice denied for these people. So we're going to have to get really creative about making sure that everyone has their quote unquote day in court, whether it be through a teleconferencing, whether they appear in court by phone, something like that, because there are constitutional protections, at least in criminal cases, where a defendant must be present during all critical proceedings. So we need to make sure that that is preserved in this new age of justice. But as far as are we violating rights? We're doing our best not to. We're doing our best to preserve the safety of people, but to also preserve the sanctity of their constitutional rights.
Does the court have so you seem to imply or tell me, does it have a date or dates in mind when the court will resume, or is it resume now, or can things legally or actually be done by video, or you have to wait till the court can resume in person, or what's happening? Explain to me, please.
Yeah, no, we've been conducting Skype hearings, where the judge, myself, the prosecutor, the defense attorney, and even at least the inmates that are in jail have been reporting by Skype. I think the Supreme Court or some agency has provided the regional jail system with computers to where they can Skype into court. And that's actually been handled beautifully during this time. Everyone's been appearing, everyone can hear and see. And so we've been handling our business that way. I believe that our building will be opening back up on Monday, May 18th, and we will be using masks and social distancing and those types of precautionary measures so we can get through this. But again, the courts have stayed open during this process. We've prioritized cases. Obviously, the people who are incarcerated because their liberty is restrained, we've given great priority to those cases. We've had a lot of bond hearings because a lot of the defense attorneys are worried that there are issues with the virus within the regional jail system. However, I will say that there have been I don't know if you can hear my phone ringing, but I apologize for that. There have been no cases reported in any regional jail or penitentiary in the state. So, but the fear is there. All the inmates are appearing with masks, as well as the corrections officers. So it is important to know that we have not abandoned our judicial system. It's just operating in a different way right now.
Well, so for actual trials, is it so are those happening now in person on a limited basis?
They are not yet. And
so that's the backlog you're talking about.
That's going to be an issue because obviously criminal trials, there is a right to jury trial. And so, will jurors be able to, be coming in and social distancing? Will they be able to use masks? Will there be sanitary issues? These are all things that we need to address. But we have a grand jury term coming up soon in Putnam County. Now we have a big enough room where I believe that we could probably do some social distancing and be okay. But those are all things that we're going to have to discuss and really get to the heart of, because those are constitutional rights that must be observed.
Well, I agree. And I'm quite if you check my blog and podcast, you'll see I'm quite opinionated in that one. Yeah, but to stick more with the interview today, but those are crucial issues. And I
Sure.
think a lot of things have been overblown or don't make sense.
I think a
Yeah,
lot of people
but
are as concerned about their safety as they are concerned about this economy. I mean, I think people are just as scared to see this economy fail as they are of the virus. So it is, every commercial on TV tells you these are unprecedented times, and they could not be more correct.
right, that's true. Well, I know you have three opponents in the Division Two. Sometimes I wonder, I assume, I mean, I haven't looked in detail, but that all the opponents are pretty qualified, I guess. Or did you want to share, maybe you did tell us your background. Is there anything you want to contrast with the others who are running in your district? Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is, for us in the public, how do we differentiate? Sometimes it seems, I've been to forums for judges, other forums locally for judges, and they all seem to me very qualified. So what makes you stand out? You know what I mean? What would you like to share about that?
So it's real easy to remember for me is I'm the sole conservative in this race. I've been endorsed by the West Virginia State Republican Party. I've also been endorsed by West Virginians for Life, which is the Right to Life group. And I've also been endorsed by the Associated Builders and Contractors. So endorsements are still coming in. Those are the three that I can tell you right now. But the other three, in this case, and that the judges' races are nonpartisan.
Yeah,
However, that doesn't mean that we check our politics at the door. I will, on my campaign materials on my website, if I can share my website, it's
sure.
raynesforjustice.com. You will see that I was 2017's Putnam County Republican Woman of the Year. This year, I was honored to receive the James H. Carruthers Outstanding Republican Award for Putnam County. So that's my background, obviously, and I can share that with you, and I can share my endorsements. I will indicate to you that a lot of my opponents have been, especially one in general, have been given lots of money by trial lawyers associations. So that person, she is a very nice person. She is a sitting judge. But if you want someone who's handpicked by the trial lawyers to sit on the court, and those trial lawyers, who knows, may expect something in return if she were to make it onto the Supreme Court, then you should pick her. But if you want somebody with conservative constitutional values, and I'm endorsed by those people that hold those values, then you should choose me.
Yeah. Yeah, I know you're talking about Judge, I guess it's Joanna Tabbitt. Yeah, she declined to be on our show, so I
Okay,
mean,
well,
that's up to
and I will
her, but
say
whatever.
she's a very nice person,
I'm sure
but
she is.
she does have liberal leanings, as do Mr. Wooten, who was a Democratic legislator for several years, and Judge Douglas, who is a family court judge. He has Democratic leanings as well. So again, it's easy to separate myself from the herd in that race. I'm the conservative one, and
Okay.
I'm
Um,
proud of it.
yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, I noticed on your site that you said, you're more about not, that term comes up a lot, legislating from the bench, but you're more about
Correct.
constitutionally based. Is that
Right.
right?
Absolutely. My judicial hero is Antonin Scalia, and he was a constitutional originalist, a constitutional constructionist, which means he believes in the plain meaning of the statute or the Constitution and the intent of the framers or the legislatures. So I believe that my role as a justice would be to interpret the law, not to create the law. That's not my role. That's not the intent of the framers. The only people that should be passing new law is the legislature. My role is to call them down the middle like a referee to say constitutional or unconstitutional. And that's the way the framers designed it. I think that our democracy is the best in the world. And it's because of that three-branch separation of powers and checks and balances system that our forefathers set up.
Okay. Well, would you like to share anything, like in conclusion, for the viewers about your candidacy, or just anything you'd like to share to wrap things up? Please go right ahead.
Okay, I really appreciate your time and your effort to put this together. There are so many things that I'd like to share that I just can't get in interviews that I'm doing, short interviews. So I'd like to welcome people to check out my website, which is raynesforjustice.com. My Facebook page is Kris Raynes for WV Supreme Court. It's right here behind me here.
Okay.
And I also have Twitter and Instagram, the @ Raynes, the number 4, and Justice. So please check me out on my social media, on my website. Things are being updated all the time. And if anyone has any questions, I have an email set up and a phone number set up on my website. So please reach out. I appreciate all chances to talk to people right now because I'm not getting to talk to anybody right now. So that's why I appreciate these types of forums to get the word out, because otherwise I'd be going from county to county, knocking on doors, talking to people in person. And unfortunately, that's just not possible right now.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for being on the show. We look forward to voting on June 9th. And thanks for giving us information about, your website and everything, and for your time today.
Thank you
So,
so much for all your efforts. I appreciate that, Mr. Urban.
okay, so I'm your host, Rich Urban, reporting to you from Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. Thank you for joining us for this interview today, and we will see you next time.